Hi, welcome back to another episode of Coldstream Rod Shop. I'm Derek Fraser. In this week's episode, our primary task this week is epoxy priming and potentially painting the Camera Lady's 32 Roadster frame. I've got my epoxy primer out, I've got my hardener and some reducer. I've ordered some more, which should be in tomorrow, just to make sure, because we're running a little bit low here. I want to make sure I have enough. So we're set to go on that. I've got the sealer and I've got the paint in the house. The last thing I have to do really is I got to finish cleaning the frame off, but I need to take these split up 2x4s and actually make a larger drop down curtain to go around here. The booth we had before was suitable for smaller stuff. I could do the Roadster body in it, but the last time I did a 32 Ford frame, I basically just sprayed it in the whole garage and the paint just went absolutely everywhere. So really need to kind of drop it down and then cover things up. I'll get the fans going on the door over there. But everything pretty much is ready to go on the frame except for a final wipe down. Along with that, hopefully I'll get a few more things done on the Y block, just completing the setup, maybe the spark plug wires and whatever comes in, the stuff we've ordered. And then on Ellie's Coupe, if we get all that stuff done, I'll plug away some of the metal work on that as well. So follow along at Coldstream Rod Shop. Here's the first step. Finally got the epoxy primer on the Camera Lady's frame. Got 2 coats on it right now. The booth was opened up another 8 feet, so right now I can rotate it up almost 90 degrees on both sides. So basically rotate it up 90 degrees on one side, paint opposite way, and paint from the top down. So next step, I'm going to put a coat of sealer onto it, and then tomorrow we are going to paint it. And there's step number 2. Put 1 coat of sealer on it. Just barely had enough to seal the frame. I know some people don't put the sealer on, but I was told to put the sealer on by some painters. So anyways, we've got 2 coats of epoxy primer and 1 coat of urethane sealer on it now. And then I'm going to let it sit overnight, and I will put 2 coats of the final color on. And there it is, surprise, it's all red. So the Camera Lady's Roadster is going to be this bright red. We kind of looked at a few colors, had a couple things we were thinking about, doing a distressed look. We looked at a nice orange. There was America's Most Beautiful Roadster back in the 1970s, a beautiful orange, but because of some of the colors we picked out, it wasn't what, I guess we couldn't strike a balance at the right contrast. So with a lot of the black components that we've already painted up, we chose to go with this bright red. So there it is. Now, I didn't show you my painting technique because I'm still considering myself an amateur kind of a painter. I did get really good coverage on this as far as I can tell. I don't have any runs, no bugs, a little bit of dust on the inside, but as you can imagine, you know, for someone that doesn't paint on the inside of frames all that often, you know, it's challenging getting spray coverage on the inside. So anyways, that's it. We've got the Camera Lady's 32 Roadster frame, and Roadster is going to be red. Well, it's 3 or 4 days later. One thing I wanted to do with the frame, I wanted to let it sit and kind of let the paint set up. Probably a little longer than what I really needed to, but I wanted to really let it sit at least 48 hours or more. I know the paint hardens up enough so you can handle it, but just be on the safe side. Anyways, we waited that long, and then we did the big shuffle again in the garage, moved the ATV back out to the working garage, opened the space up, and then stacked the cars back in here again to free up the area here to do more assembly work. So right now I'm just picking out all the different parts I had powder coated. A lot of these I'm going to have to chase all the threads and clean all the threads and get the residue or whatever out. And then in some cases, as much as you give instructions to people, they put powder coating on faces that don't need to be done. And anyways, we'll get the file out. We're going to file off all these areas, clean it down to the bare metal. clean threads up, get some bushings, and start putting the front axle assembly together here. So we're gonna try and push the camera lady's assembly as far as we can go, as long as I can find the parts and have all the parts. Since there are some things that we didn't powder coat, I'm gonna have to paint them black. Some of these things challenging to powder coat, not impossible, but a lot of masking. So I knew that the shackles and the perches and stuff, I usually put a coat of black enamel on those. Same thing with the back of the spindles. Probably could have got them masked up, but for the most part, just paint them black. And then the other thing is I had to, all of the bolts that came with it, I don't know if I mentioned this already, were grade 5 bolts, so had to go out and get all new grade 8 bolts for it. We've got a few for the shocks, but all the suspension parts in the front didn't have those. And now I do have a lot of the stuff cleaned off, the powder coating cleaned off the areas where we need it, on top of spring perches, and then where the clevises mount on the side here. So got the axle all wrapped up in the bench here. There's my bag of grade 8 bolts that we're going to be using. Going to start lubing up the urethane bushings and stuff to go into the rod ends, and then just kind of push forward through the assembly and deal with the things that are missing as we go. Well, I've been playing around with the camera lady's front end here a little bit longer than what I normally do. One thing is when you go to set the front end back up again, because you took all of the clevis pins and tire and rod ends and everything out, you don't know where they were set back at. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that the front axle is square with the frame. I want to have the axle basically positioned right now at approximately where it's going to sit when the car is completely under load. Now, fortunately for me, because I have the 32 pickup and the Model A over there on a 32 chassis, I can go off of those and get some dimensions of where the axle is going to sit up off the floor, how much the spring is compressed, and where the frame is going to sit relative to the floor. So essentially what I've done, I've taken the frame, set the front end up, I think it's about 8 inches off the floor, and then in the back, on the frame horns, I'm around, I think, 19 inches off the floor, because we're actually going to run with a little bit bigger tire on the back than the other cars. So I want to simulate where the frame is going to sit under full load with the engine and the body and everything into it, because it's going to be at that point that you want to set your caster on the axle. So we want the caster set at around between 5 and 7 degrees. Right now, after goofing around with this for quite a while, I don't know if that's still on or not, but we're around 6.5 degrees, so I'm getting close to 7. More than likely it's going to reduce a little bit because I think the tires are going to be a little higher. But in order to set the caster, I had to adjust these clevises so that I could tilt the axle this way. So we got to set the caster, we have to set the axle square with the frame. In order to set the axle square with the frame, like once I got the caster set, then I started adjusting the front axle this way. So I made a mark in the center of the back of the frame back here, right there. So that's dead center in the back. The camera lady helped me with a measuring tape, and we basically took from that point to each of the centers of the spindles and made sure we had the exact same dimension, so that way the front axle was square with the front of the frame. So right now, axle sitting at ride height, frame is sitting at ride height, axle is square in frame, and my caster is set at like 6.5 degrees or so. So I am really, really close right now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the spring back together again, because I just have the leaf in there right now to make sure that the bottom leaf, just to make sure that I've got the axle positioned side to side and I wasn't throwing any of my measurements out. So like I say, next step is I will put the spring together, we'll tighten some stuff down, and then we're going to go put some more pieces together here. So this week has been taken up with a whole bunch of little things like it's been the past couple weeks, unfortunately. For the Camera Ladies Roadster chassis, I'm still plugging away at a number of different things, painting a few things up. So in the picture here, you can see the rear end, the 9-inch Ford rear end that we're going to use. That was all welded up and narrowed and everything previously. So what we had to do is send it out and get sandblasted. So that's all cleaned up now and ready to... I'm probably going to do a little bit of body work onto it because this was an Eastern axle. There's a little bit of pinning in the middle. It's kind of just, I'm not going to go crazy. I'm just going to smooth it out just a little bit. We'll do that. We'll paint it up black next week. And then for the pinion, I had a center section. It looks all rusty here, but this is an exceptional one. When I bought this a while ago, I checked it out and it looked as though it had already been rebuilt. So I took it to a friend that checked out the backlash and everything onto it. And he says, you give me a kit, I can't do better than the way that this one is set up. So this one is set up for, it's an open rear end. We don't need a posi track on the Roadster, but it's 350 gears, a Ford 9-inch. I did take the yoke off, cleaned everything up. I checked the outside of the yoke for any grooves in that. It was in really good shape. So just put a brand new pinion seal in. So what I'm going to do next with this, I'm going to set it up on a bucket and I'm going to clean all of the outside and everything. We'll give that a coat of black paint. Again, that's probably going to be next week, but we had to do this stuff before we get to that. And then the pulleys for the Y block, we're plugging away at a number of small different things. One of the things I had to do was plug off the heater hose here. So we've got some brass plugs for that. I don't know. Yeah, there it is right there. We're not going to be using the heater onto it. So I took this off and plugged that up. And like I said, those pulleys are all sandblasted and ready to paint. And then we'll go over to the other garage and see what else I've been doing. So here on the front end, I kept on working with a few things. As I said earlier, the leaf spring, I took it out and I painted it all up and put it back in place. We've got the U-bolts in place onto it right now. And then I've reinstalled the spindles. I found the shims and the pins here to hold it in place. So spindles are in place. And then I went around and tightened up all the bolts all the way around after I did the complete alignment. Next up, those are the brake caliper brackets. These were powder coated, so unfortunately everything was powder coated. So this inner diameter here, I've got to strip the powder coating off of that so it'll fit on those spindles. For the rotors, we needed a new set of seals. Those are on the way. So in next week's episode, I should be able to get that on. But anyways, we're making some pretty good progress here on a Camera Ladies Roadster chassis. So that's it for another week of Coldstream Rod Shop. Sorry the video was short. Unfortunately, we didn't do a video last week, mainly because we're working on stuff and I kind of didn't want to show you a video of watching paint dry. So most of the time took up doing that. And then of course it's summertime too, so we're trying to get some stuff down around the yard. Got a lot of wood to split for the fall. I mean, I know it's hot. You don't want to think about hot, but it's the best time for wood to dry, so I'm working on that. But what we're going to continue doing, we're going to continue working on the Camera Ladies chassis. This week we've got it painted. We've got some of the suspension components on. We're cleaning up some of the parts, painting some of the parts that weren't painted, and just kind of piece by piece putting it back together again. So anyways, come on back next week and hopefully we can get some wheels onto it, or at least get close to getting some wheels onto it. So anyways, please like, share, tag, and subscribe. Come on back next week, and everybody take care. Have a great week.